and I'm the contracts intern here at AC Electric that I've been working under Margaret this summer, and I'm happy to share with you all today my presentation. So, some things I want to talk about for today. I want to talk a little bit about my background for those of you I didn't get a chance to know this summer. I want to talk about company analysis for AC, my intern experience, and my lean project proposal, as well as a couple of closing slides. So, a little bit about myself. I grew up in Riverside, California, up until about my high school graduation, where my family then moved to Dana Point, California, which is a small little beach town just north of San Diego. I received my bachelor's in history from UC Santa Barbara back in 2020, and I chose history because I wanted to better refine my reading and writing skills, and I also had a general interest in history. Currently, I'm going into my third year of law school at Chapman University, and funny enough, I actually wasn't interested in contracts my first year, as all the first year students have to take a mandatory contracts class, and they don't actually teach you how to read or write contracts, but they teach you about the rules of contracts. So that's the Uniform Commercial Code, the Restatement Second, and the Statute of Frauds, and so on. So originally I wanted to go into environmental law, but I took a contract drafting class my second year, and that's kind of where the spark was ignited, as I got to read, write, and negotiate contracts. Some of my hobbies include golfing and skateboarding. So I had some initial thoughts coming onto AC. I've known Darren and his family my entire life, and I actually didn't really know what AC was all about until just a few years ago. As a kid, I actually thought AC was an air conditioning installation company, which makes sense given how hot it can get up here, but I was surprised to see just how expansive AC is, and it's been a true joy to be able to see the inner complexity of how AC operates. I've had a couple of internships in my past where management wasn't as involved, so I was hoping that wouldn't be the case here, and they did not let me down whatsoever, as Margaret has been a joy to work with every single day. So, jumping into the substantial portion of my presentation, I want to talk a little bit about AC. So a brief background. It was founded in 1945. It's an electrical construction company with its roots in Central California. It has 3 divisions, one in Fresno, one in Visalia, and then one here in Bakersfield. And in Bakersfield, there's actually 3 offices. There is headquarters, B division, and construction services here, which is where I work at. I was also pretty unaware that AC was very heavily invested in solar, as AC was one of the first pioneers to implement a solar grid by PG&E back in 1993. So I want to move now to AC's values. We have integrity, which is operating with uncompromised character and honesty; quality, which is providing best-in-class workmanship; professionalism, which is treating our customers and coworkers with the respect that they deserve; knowledge, which is valuing ongoing training and the pursuit of knowledge; safety, which is something that we strive to do in everything we do, and we also strive to achieve a 0 accident rate. We have service, which is consistently exceeding our customers' and coworkers' expectations in the services that we provide; and family, which is fostering a work environment that recognizes the balance in both work and family life; and then community, which is giving back to the communities in which we do business in. And there is also another one, which is desire, which is the want, the drive, and the determination to do all this. And without that value, we wouldn't be where we are today. In my opinion, I feel that knowledge, service, and community are some of our stronger values. Knowledge, I got from our Meet the Managers meetings. Everybody that came in was extremely knowledgeable in their respective fields. Service, I got to see this at the end of a negotiations meeting that I got to sit in with Margaret and Kyle. And at the end of that meeting, Kyle was offering the customer all these additional services that weren't of huge help to AC, but it built better trust with them, and hopefully they could come back to us in the future with more business. And then for community, I would like to show a quick picture as well as a quick story. So the story behind this picture here is that I was out grabbing a bite with Darren one day, and he told me there was a nearby park that had something cool he wanted to show me. So we went to Jastrow Park down the street, and he showed me that this bench that the city of Bakersfield had put in as kind of a token of gratitude for everything that they've done over the years. So moving on to the conditions of satisfaction for 2025, we have people, which is to hire and retain talented people with the potential and attitude to improve. We have markets, which is to display profitable growth with robust cash generation in each division and to dominate every market. For growth, we want 10% net operating income and days sales outstanding under 40 days of round revenues of $250 million by 2025's financial year's end. And this can be achieved through 22% annual growth. And in order to achieve this, we also need to achieve our goals for people and markets. For pre-construction, we want 35% of our portfolio to comprise of work requiring advanced services, and we also want to dive more into tech-focused work as well. for services and special projects. We want these services to make up about 25% of our portfolio with 25% gross operating income, and to place AC with bigger clients. We want to be in the big leagues. So, the vision, what is the big picture for AC? So, that is to be the leader in industrial construction, industrial automation, service, and safety in the markets that we serve. And in order to achieve the vision, we have to achieve the mission statements first, and we have several. So, that is to pursue accident-free workplaces, earn loyal customers by operating with the highest level of professionalism, acting with integrity, and consistently delivering quality services and values. We also need to differentiate from other companies by offering turnkey solutions, from design build to technical services, to bring in and keep the best people who have the most potential to grow by giving them the respect that they deserve, and to exceed our stakeholders' expectations. And in my time here at AC, I've seen that they've done an amazing job at maintaining and working towards these values, the mission statements, and the vision as a whole. So, on to structure. AC provides a wide range of services ranging from automation, renewable energy, data and telecom services, pre-construction, outdoor lighting, and preventative lighting. On to infrastructure. AC is made up of several different departments that are then comprised of many skilled employees who all coordinate and work with each other in order to achieve the vision and the missions. So, as a whole, AC ensures that it's not just one department that builds up camaraderie, but across the entire company as a whole. In addition to all the scores of office workers that we have hundreds of field workers and electricians who have undergone proper training and have acquired the proper certifications to do the services that they're to perform. Then we have the best internship in the universe, which is where about a dozen of us are picked to work closely with the manager in the fields that we desire. And speaking of the internship, I would now like to talk a little bit about my experience here. That one has to be my favorite picture right there at the bottom left. As you can see, Margaret has a hearty glass of wine right there, having a good time. But some of my responsibilities here at AC was to review and do addendums for returning customers and new customer contracts. For returning customers, that one was pretty easy. All I would need to do is pull an old contract with the customer that either Margaret or Danica had redlined in the past and make the same changes while looking out for any new additional language that might have been in there. But that was often rare, as most customers would just recycle their contracts. For new customers, it was a little bit more challenging as nobody had touched these contracts before or worked with them, so I got to make the markups for the very first time. And a lot of these contracts were built towards maintaining a fair working relationship between us and them, but there were some that were a little bit more one-sided and some that were almost unconscionable. At that point, we would go into, I would make the addendum, and then we would send it to the customer, and they would either accept or reject our changes. For returning customers, they often accepted, considering that we did business with them in the past. For newer customers, they would often accept some and reject some. So we would then move into the negotiation phase when they rejected these offers, and the contract team would get together and review these rejected changes and see if we can craft some kind of argument as to persuade them to either accept or at least compromise on some of these rejected terms. Oh, geez. Sorry. That always pops up at the most inopportune times.
That's why we're getting rid of it.
Yeah. After that, we would then get into a negotiation meeting with the client. I would get the opportunity to sit in on some of these with Danica and Margaret and hear Margaret work her magic with the customer. And actually, there was one time where Margaret was arguing a couple of terms that I had made on my behalf, and they were accepted, and it was a really great feeling. So I had a lot of fun in the negotiation meetings. Aside from that, I did a lot of legal research. Being a law student, I have free access to several legal databases. So whenever we run into a legal roadblock or hiccup, they would always come to me and ask to do some preliminary research on seeing if we can maybe get past it. Some of the research I've done includes preliminary notices, surety bonds, adhesion contracts, and more. Aside from all of that, I did a lot of general administrative work and just helped out wherever I was needed. Out of all of my responsibilities here, I would have to say my favorites was to do some legal research and tackling new customer contracts, as I enjoyed getting to learn about the new types of law, and I also enjoyed getting to redline the messy contracts. So, what did I learn? Coming into this, I knew a fair amount about contracting terms already from school, but I didn't know a lot about construction terms. So it was great to get to learn about this and to know what exactly we are contracting for. But I'd say the biggest one that I learned was to always consider the business aspect when negotiating these contracts, as in law school they teach you to fiercely fight for your client's terms. However, knowing when to tactically concede or allow for some trade-offs is critical, as it allows the customer to have some kind of gratification and motivation in closing the deal, which could then hopefully bring them back to give us more business. Another one is to always cover your bases and to be patient. It's very easy to miss something in a contract, which could then drastically alter the scales of that contract, putting us at great risk. So it's important to be observant and cautious. And there is a quote from Extreme Ownership that I've heard a lot here at AC that perfectly embodies this, and that is, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It is better to take it slow and get it right than to mess up, or rush it, mess up, and then have to go back and fix it. So onto my team structure. My team is made up of myself and 2 paralegals. Margaret Palmer is the contract manager. Danica Asbridge was the contract administrator, and both have been wonderful to work with over the course of the summer and have taught me a lot about how to understand construction contracts. So they have given me several different resources that I would often look to at the end of the day in my free time to better understand and improve my skills and comprehension of construction contracts. And these are the things I would often look to first whenever I was doing legal research. My favorite parts of the day were our brief morning huddles. They're about 15 to 20 minutes in the morning, where we would talk about our agendas for the day, as well as just what was going on in our lives. And even though I've only been here for a couple of months, I'm going to very much miss working with the both of them. So, what were my 5 big takeaways from this experience? The first one is careful analysis is critical. As I talked about before, it's very easy to miss something, which could be fatal to us. So it's always important to do a review with caution. 2 is to ask more questions. This is something I've never really been too good at in school or in life in general, as I didn't want to seem coming off like I'm dumb or I don't understand what's being assigned to me. And I realize now how flawed that mode of thinking is, considering I just gave a whole spiel on how slow is smooth and smooth is fast. But a story that comes to mind when talking about this one is recently Margaret gave me a task of drafting up a couple of provisions for a contract, and she liked a lot of what I had, but she had one big critique, and that was that I didn't understand the scope of work, arguably the most important part of a contract. And that's because I didn't ask for any clarification on it. I figured I could just accept the assignments and figure it out based off the limited notes that I had from that meeting, and that definitely was not the case. So always ask questions. Number 3 is to take risks, but always mitigate them. You won't always be able to argue in your favor or argue contracts in your favor. So it's important to mitigate risks whenever you have to take them. Some considerations when looking at such risks are, is the money good? Is the job good? And is the job beneficial to the community? 4 is negotiation skills. In my contract drafting class that I talked about earlier, we only ever did negotiations over email. It was never in person or over the phone. So I realized how much easier it is on email, as you have more time to craft an argument. Whereas in person, you are constantly being put on the spot and had to figure it out. So I don't know how Margaret was able to do it, but she's been amazing at it. And actually, I got to learn a lot about some of these skills from her and Kyle at the end of one of our negotiation meetings, and it's to always consider what the customer is considering. And they always consider the motivation behind the contract, the control, what can they get in the contract, the timing of the contract, can we do this on a reasonable schedule, and the liability portion, what can they be liable for. Lastly, I want to talk about how to build connections and the company culture. So building connections, I didn't really interact too much with everybody my first several weeks here at AC. I kind of kept to myself. I only talked to my team, and as the internship went on and I got to get to know all of you a lot more, I realized how big of a mistake that was. So if I could go back, that was something I would definitely change. Some of the people I've gotten to know the best are my fellow interns, like Michael and Hudson, who's currently not here, but I hope he's watching. And the second is to recognize company culture. So for company culture, it's very important, as nobody wants to work in a lifeless office space where the only time people want to come up and talk to you is when it's about work. So recognizing a company culture and building one is important, as it can increase productivity and overall morale. So I would also like to talk a little bit about my professional growth since I've been here. For my strengths, my predictive index was pretty spot on in saying I enjoyed working in a team, as after every contract review meeting and morning huddle, I felt motivated and ready to jump into work. For my weaknesses, as I said before, I didn't ask enough questions, and that's something I had hoped to recognize earlier on in my career. Opportunities, every new assignment that I was given was another opportunity to learn something new or to better refine my already existing skills. And then lessons, a big one that I learned from Margaret was to avoid burnout by taking breaks. And this is something that they do teach you in law school, but the readings in law school are a little bit more engaging and aren't as messy as some of these contracts are, so you don't have to constantly read and reread them several times before you can fully understand them. So taking breaks to avoid burnout is huge. So next I would like to talk about my Lean project proposal, which is HQ's archive record room. And next I'm going to show you a couple of pictures I took a couple of weeks ago of the before. And as you can see here, there is a whole heck of a lot going on. There are boxes stacked on top of the file cabinets that are stacked on top of each other. There's stuff all over the floor. There's trash, there's dirt, there's bugs all over the place, and overall it's just a complete mess. So before jumping into my improvements, I would like to talk a little bit about the lessons from our readings. So for 2-second Lean, it's all about eliminating waste and making constant improvements. So for the archive room, we need to get rid of all the waste in there, which would then allow us to provide for more improvements that could be made. For extreme ownership, it's all about accountability. AC Electric allowed the room to become this way, so it should be our responsibility to now clean it up. For 7 habits, the biggest one for me was to be proactive. So that means taking the initiative to get in and get it cleared out, as well as keeping a determined attitude to keep it clean going forward. So what are the goals for this project? That is to clean the archive room, to fully optimize the space, to better organize the necessary materials, and lastly and most importantly is to eliminate waste. And here you can see I've listed the 8 deadly sins of waste right here, and in my opinion, number 3, excess inventory, and number 6, wasted motion, are the most prevalent for my project. Excess inventory is pretty self-explanatory. After you saw those pictures, there's a whole heck of a lot going on in that room. As for wasted motion, people have to come in and carefully tiptoe their way around stuff to find what they're looking for and move things. So those are some things that we need to eliminate. So where could all this waste go? Well, there are several different places to where this waste can go. There is the storage facility on 18th Street where we can put stuff that isn't regularly accessed, but we do need to keep. There's the storage hangar and the C-train right outside that we could use for the same purposes. And then for all of the trash, we can either put that in the garbage cans outside HQ or in the recycle outside HQ. And next I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of the hangar storage in the C-train right outside headquarters. And as you can see in the center picture here, there are a lot of boxes that aren't filled at all that we can put stuff in. And in this picture right here, you can see there's a lot of shelving space as well that we can put stuff on. And the best part about this is that these two are right outside headquarters, so it's almost as if nothing is really being moved. It's a short walk away. So when can this project get done? So thanks to the help of Jackie, I've actually started this project. I haven't completely finished it. So going forward, it would be great if every department could go and take a look at what they have stored there and determine whether or not they actually need to keep it, move it, or get rid of it. And this can be done whenever is most convenient, but it would be great if this could be done by the end of the summertime. And going forward, it'd be great if we can maintain it in coming years. So how did I start this process? So first, Jackie and I created a color-coded list of all the known files and records in the room, and each color represented a different department. We would then reach out to these departments and see if they could come by and check this stuff out and let us know if we can purge it, keep it, or move it to 18th Street. After that, we removed and recycled some of the trash that was in there. A lot of this was old marketing materials for brands that we no longer use, like AC Solar, AC Technical Services, but we did keep some of them for historical purposes. And then after that, we dug deep into some corners and into some cabinets, rounded up some of the event items and boxed those up and put those into the hangar outside. And a lot of that stuff was, holiday decorations, party decorations, job fair stuff, and picnic stuff as well. Things that we do need to keep, but that we regularly don't access. So here are a couple pictures of the after those 3 steps. As you can see, we cleared up a lot of the space on the flooring, a lot of the trash is gone, the cabinets and the counters are looking a lot cleaner. We took a lot of the boxes down, and you can actually see over here all the different colored Post-its that I was talking about earlier. So right here we have the orange Post-it notes. Those are old employee records that Phil was going to take a look at. Next to those are these purple ones here that are old job files that Jackie was going to look at. Next to those are small pink Post-it notes that are old contract files that Margaret already took a look at. Next to those are these blue Post-it notes, our old accounting files that Bart came and took a look at as well and told us we can get rid of some stuff. Up here are these big pink Post-its, our old OGM files that Jackie was also going to look at. Below those are these yellow Post-its that Dan said he was going to take a look at as well. And then aside from that, there were a couple of boxes of solar stuff, as well as some old equipment that Dylan and Kyle were going to come take a look at as well. So overall, it's looking a lot better, but as you can see, there's still some improvements to be made. So going forward, what we can do is we can organize the necessary materials inside. So this is grouping like things together. So all the apparel and the merchandise should be together, the training materials should be together, envelopes and papers and so on. And it would also be great to move some of these things into new spaces where they would best fit. After that, a general cleaning of the room, dusting, sweeping, mopping would be great. And then the last thing to do would be to label the spaces so we know exactly where everything is, which makes for easier access. So why is this project important? Well, as I said before, the big thing is safety. As you saw in those before pictures, there was a lot of boxes that were hanging off into the walkways that could fall and hit somebody in the head. There was a lot of stuff on the floor that people could trip on. So getting rid of all that stuff could reduce a lot of the hazards and risk of injury. The second is sanitation. It's a very old and dusty room full of like bugs and dirt. So cleaning it all out would be a lot more inviting and welcoming to employees whenever they would need to access it. The third one is for efficiency purposes. And this is pretty self-explanatory as well. You can get rid of some stuff and you can find things a lot easier inside. 4 is extra storage. You all know the saying, out with the old, in with the new. We get rid of the old stuff. It can free up space for some of the newer things that we need to store. So the fifth one, the last one, is standardization for future uses. By implementing the system now, it'll ensure that the room is kept clean in years to come and avoid it from being cluttered once more. So how does this add value to AC? So as discussed, it will reduce risk. It could also build discipline within our employees, which could then allow us to have more creativity in how we utilize the space. That's another thing from extreme ownership as well. And then it could also create some good habits in our employees that they could take into their personal lives. And that was all I wanted to talk about for my lean project. And now for my closing slides, how can we improve the best internship in the universe to become the best internship in the multiverse? So for team department building, I got this idea for Hudson's presentation. And if you all remember his, he posted a couple of pictures of him and his team going out on like a golf trip, which seemed like a lot of fun and something that we all could have benefited from. Number 2 is more small scale presentations. We touched a little bit about this in Mike's presentation not too long ago. So a lot of us, myself included, have difficulty speaking in public comfortably. So I think it would be a great idea if we could have our interns briefly present maybe once a week or once every other week, just to their department on an assignment given to them. I think that would be a great idea as to help get them over that difficulty as well as better prepare them for this presentation at the end of the summer. Next, I want to talk a little bit about my experience here in Bakersfield. As I said, I am from down south where the weather peaks in the mid-80s, so I am not at all used to this heat where it's in the 90s and 100s. I also came in struggling to find things to do after work as well on the weekends, but thanks to my coworkers and fellow interns, I've gotten to know a lot of great places to eat and for entertainment, and everyone here has been so kind and welcoming that it's really made Bakersfield feel like a home away from home. And I want to thank you all again for coming for my presentation. I want to thank my fellow interns for making this a very fun experience. And I want to thank my team, Margaret and Danica, for helping me become a better professional for my future career. Thank you. And then I also had some recommendations slides if anybody has anything they want to say that I did good on or something I could improve upon for future reference.
So which did you find more rewarding? Drafting an amendment to a addendum to a contract or cleaning up the vault?
Drafting the amendment.
I would think so.
Yeah. Otherwise, you could have hired me as the
Well,
janitor.
important, but-
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my job.
Yeah.
So you have a comment on Facebook. Joe says, I didn't know AC had a bench at Jastrow Park. Interesting fact and great job, Grant.
Thanks, Joe.
I have a recommendation.
Yeah.
I know we met and we talked
Mhm.
about claims and things. I hope that steered you away from being an ambulance chasing lawyer.
Yes.
Not
Yes,
things
it
like
really
that.
did.
That's my whole intent with that, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's funny because my father told me when I was going into law school, you should be an ambulance chaser. They make the most amount of money. I said, I don't know. I kind of want to explore my options first. And you really kind of reassured me is that's not really something that you want to do like ethically or
Yeah.
morally, you know.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Jen had a question.
No, we'll do Jen first. Go
Okay,
ahead.
Jen.
Thank you. You mentioned that you were made a part of some of the negotiations. Can you be specific and tell us about one?
Yeah, so one of them was for Lout Farms. It was me, Margaret, and Kyle, and I got to go with them to their office actually, and it was about 15 minutes away from here, I think. And they did most of the talking, but I got a whole heck of a lot out of that experience. And at the very end is when he started to share with me kind of the things that the customers look at, like motivation and control. So it was a very fun experience.
Great. And quick follow-up is, you mentioned that you had made some suggestions and Margaret was successfully negotiated them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be specific and tell us about one or two of those suggestions you made?
Yeah, so the big one that I can remember off the top of my head was actually a termination provision, and they wanted to be able to terminate, I think, within 90 days, I think. I got it reduced to like 45, or I can't specifically remember exactly what the provision was, but it was definitely a termination provision where it was more beneficial for us in terms of termination. Hope that answers your question. Sorry, it was several months ago, or a couple months ago.
So, what drew you to the archive room? Given that our offices are over here, what brought that to your attention and made you see the need for your lean project?
It's history major.
There's my answer. No, I was actually going over to Britannica one day to pick up a couple of old con admin files, which are old files that we keep with our returning customers, which are the same ones that we used to pull for the same newer contracts that we have with those returning customers. So we were going over to pick up a couple of those, and she told me it's a little messy inside and to watch my step. And I was thinking to myself, it really can't be that bad. The second she swung that door open, I realized immediately that this is what I need to do my project on. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
From your reading of 2 Second Lane,
Mm-hmm.
how have you taken and used some of those techniques in your own personal life?
Well, I've organized my room a lot better, I can tell you that. Yeah, I've also made sure to, this might build more into like discipline, but I've like been making my bed every day. I've been making everything is like in its right spot before I leave in the morning. So that's probably how I've been implementing 2 Second Lane in my personal life.
Thank you.
You know, I have another question.
Go for it. That's what I'm here for.
What is it that you've learned through this summer that you can carry forward either into your last year of law school or to your future career? What are some things you've learned?
So 2 things I talked about earlier was to avoid burnout. That's a big thing I learned from you, and the other was better time management. I really could have used the 4 quadrants back in my first year, as I used a lot of my study habits from undergrad, and it didn't translate well over into law school, and I struggled a little bit with time management, so that would have been a very helpful thing to do. So that's definitely what I'm going to keep and use moving forward. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so to avoid burnout, what type of wine did Margaret suggest that you invite?
Always a nice Pinot.
Thanks, Jen.
Beautiful. Then a more serious question, and that would be, what surprised you about the internship? You already shared that, you thought we were an air conditioning company, and was surprised that it was much more than that, but I mean.
As a kid, that's what I thought. I knew what I was getting into.
Okay. What surprised you here?
One of the things I talked about earlier was just how involved management is, and everybody actually as a whole. Margaret was checking in on me every single day, seeing if I had things to do, or if I just wanted to have a quick little chat. Probably one of the times she was taking a break to avoid burnout as well. But aside from her, everybody was just so nice and welcoming here, whereas some of the places that I've worked beforehand, everybody just kind of stays at their desks, and they just work all day and don't really interact with each other too much. So that was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, nice. I hope that you'll be able to pay that forward through your career, and I wonder the interns that you choose to take on in your career and how you choose to work with and develop them.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Question?
Yep.
Are there any universal themes
difference that you have found between, or that exists between what you have kind of gone through in past internships or school and what you kind of gleaned from going through this experience?
Okay, so a universal theme, I guess, would be is the whole idea of like shadowing someone, you know? So main role of an intern is to learn from their mentor. So a lot of these meetings that I sat in with in past jobs, I would just observe and listen in. Whereas this one, I got to observe and listen, but I would also given the opportunity to chime in whenever I thought I could add some value. So that was definitely one of the big parts, I would say.
Do you feel like that worked the best, or was there a better way that you kind of like perceived that could have been done, or that you would have liked to learn? Because some people get that, like, but if you're not gonna thrust into the middle of a situation, you may not be so inclined to speak up and say, hey, what about this? Because it's just not like who everybody is. But do you feel like there's a better way that you would have liked to learn during this internship, or like kind of get information based off what everybody had to share?
I think a cool thing would have been to have like a preliminary meeting before some of these negotiation contracts meetings. Then we could really talk about things that we wanted to say, some things that we could catch beforehand, because there was a couple that I sat in with Margaret where she gave me the contract like right before and just said, hey, we have a meeting in like an hour, give this a quick review, and then let's go over it. So those are the ones where I didn't really chime in, where I didn't really have anything of value to add. So I think a better way of doing it would have had to had a preliminary meeting where we kind of discussed it a little bit more beforehand and then jumped right into it and then give our 2 cents.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Craig?
Self-serving question first. So I had the opportunity to sit with all of you guys in one of the early on lunch meetings. I gave out
The Darrenisms? Yeah.
And then, a comfortable answer, say none of them. But which one, if there is one that resonated with you, which one was it that you carried forward?
It involves a swear word, can I say it? It's the don't bullshit. So basically just be upfront and honest, say it like it is, don't tiptoe around the issue, don't beat around the bush, just say what's on your mind, and it's a lot easier to have a free-flowing conversation based off of that.
Good, thank you. You have 2.5 days to clean that vault up.
I think I could get it done.
Fire is not an option.
Yeah. I have someone coming in that might be able to help tomorrow.
Jen has a question, but she also has a comment. If you can scroll back to the slide, suggestions for improvements in the intern program. And then Jen, go ahead if you have a question.
Oh, thank you. So what did you use to create your presentation, the tool that you used?
I just used Google Slides, and then I downloaded a template from there, and it had all these cool little things that I could put on there, such as like all the clip art and everything.
Neat. And I failed to ask that of you, Mike. What did you use?
I used PowerPoint.
Right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give the next contracted intern or other interns or future employees of this company?
So for the future contracts intern, I would definitely say to take full advantage of the resources that Margaret has and of her knowledge as well. I relied a lot on those construction contracts books that she gave me for my legal research, as well as when I was having trouble just reading some of these contracts in general. For future employees, like Michael, I would say to build connections. Like him, I also didn't talk to very many people in my first couple of weeks here, and that was a big thing that I regret.
Sorry.
Final questions for Jen?
I gotta share. Sam just sent me something that made me laugh, and I didn't know he had a sense of humor, so it's pretty freaking awesome. He's using Microsoft Paint for his presentation.
Interesting.
That's
Interesting
not how to do
choice.
All right, thank you so much, Grant.
Thank you.
Awesome, well done.